Hello, it's Jeff the maintenance guy. And I'm moving my camera. Alright, here we go. Well, you can see now. We're going to talk about, I haven't really talked about anything electrical, not like your household electrical stuff or anything like that, but we got a number of wires here. We got white, a black, a bare wire, and a red wire. And you're like, well, what's the red wire? And this is for people. I know if you're an electrician and all that, you're looking at me and going, well, what in the hell? But I'm going to show you a little trick, some tricks that I learned about installing outlets and indicators that are on the outlet that can save your life, and the do's and don'ts, hopefully, if I can wrap this up in about 10 minutes. Or the battery doesn't go dead on the cam. Alright, the first things first is, this is an electrical outlet. Here you have your ground screw, and here you have two screws here, and you have two screws here. Now, from my experience in most outlets, I'm not saying this is for every outlet, okay? There's also even a handy dandy strip gauge. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you put your wire here, and if you've stripped it that much, they're saying that you made enough strip to complete a hook in here, or to stick the wire in the back of this. Now this is like a 14 gauge, and this is probably rated for 12 gauge, so it doesn't fit in the back of the hole. In that case, I have to use the screws. But if it is a 14 gauge wire and it doesn't fit in here, I would suggest that you get what's called a 20 amp receptacle. And you can tell because on the hot or the neutral, I can't remember, there's a slash that goes right across the edge of the outlet. So it has like a T on it. I think it's on the neutral. I'm not sure. But I can't remember. There's also little tabs you can break off here, which have already been broke off to fit it flush inside of a box that's giving you grief, that has something blocking that area, which I've used before. So to the wire colors is ground, which is your bare, goes to your ground. Black, and most outlets will go to the gold side. This is your hot wire. This will go to the gold screw terminals on this side. Your white will go to the stainless steel looking silvery ones. Okay. Another thing, if you notice on an outlet, you have a small side and a big side. For whatever reason, I always thought bigger was better, so that would be your hot side and that would be your neutral, but it's not. The big side is your neutral or white wire. Your black wire is the small side. And I guess the reason they made it smaller is so you can't stick stuff in there and get shocked. Because you can stick something in here and not get shocked. You can stick something in here and not get shocked. You can touch this, not get shocked. Unless it's pulling 220. But that's a different story. But so that's a little bit how that works. Why do I have the red wire? In most cases, now it's not in every case, there's a switch. So you'll have all of these wires coming out of the box like this. And you're like, well, what do I do with the red wire? I know what to do with the black wire. I know what to do with white wire. You hook them here and here. But if I hook the red wire to here, what's going to happen? You know, the red wire usually indicates a switch. In some cases, you walk in the bedroom, you flip the switch, and nothing happens, probably because it's controlling the outlet. Now, you can do one or two things from this point. You can take the red wire, treat it as a black wire, and you can hook it onto the black side of the outlet. Okay? You can do that. And the switch will control this whole outlet. Every time you flip the switch, the white still goes on the other side, and the gold still goes on this side. The whole outlet will turn on and off. But there's even more features in these outlets. I don't know if y'all seeing this or not, but right here, there's a little piece of metal that's sticking out. You can snap this off, like I did on this side already. And now the circuit's not completed between these two screws. So now you can put the red wire here, or the black wire here, and the black wire here. That way, when you flip on a switch, it turns the top outlet on, but this one still stays on. Let's say you have an alarm clock on this one. You don't want to turn off your alarm clock. It would stay on. But you have a lamp plugged into this one. It would come on when you flip a switch, when you enter a room. Very helpful. But then again, you don't need the fourth wire. Let's say you wanted to control both sides of the outlet. So what you would do is cut this off, wire net it, stick it back in the box, and leave it. Stick your red wire on here, and do not cut the bridging that's in between these screws. And then that will control just the top outlet. The neutral, you do not cut, because you're going to only have one neutral going in. So if you did cut this by accident, you could like strip your wire way back and make a big loop, but that's a little bit ghetto. Wiring. Again, with the wire strip gauge, that's pretty helpful. Also note that if you do have a hot ground, in some cases you'll find this is a hot ground. Sometimes it's very rare, but usually when you drop a neutral off the pole or something, you can actually have a hot ground or something. But when you go and you unscrew your screws from here and here, and everybody goes like this and pulls it out, you're gonna get zapped if that ground's hot, because that's going straight into that metal frame that you're doing. But Jeff the maintenance guy, here's some wire strippers. These are just regular Cobalt, kind of from Lowe's or whatever. And I'll just go over this real quick. These are the crimps. These are bolt cutters, screw cutters. You screw the screw in to these holes, and then when you go like that, it makes a pretty good shear line on the thread, and you don't have to like round it off on a grinder or anything. These are different gauges of wire stripping. Some needle nose pliers. Here's some little crimper things up here. And then you have your loop, and what loop is for is if you strip this correctly, you can take and stick about that much out of the top of it and just go like this, turn, and it makes a loop in your wire for you. Now, remember that strip gauge? Well, when you do this, you're going to be turning the screw right. So you want your hook to go in that direction. You want to go counterclockwise. There's some little rest right here where you can rest the wire on there. Here's one problem I have with that strip gauge, is when you do use it. Let's see if I can get this on here right. You do use the strip gauge. You can even, sometimes it's a pain in the butt, but you can squish that and curl it around. But here's the problem I have with using that strip gauge. It's not quite long enough. You need at least another 1/4 inch of insulation, because the insulation's under a screw. So when you go to tighten this, what's going to happen is it's going to tighten on the insulation. Oh yeah, that feels tight to me. But in reality, you want this tight, because as people plug in and plug vacuums and stuff, this could spark and freak the resident out or whatever. I mean, it's close. But just strip, after you did the strip gauge, just take about another 1/4 inch off. You don't want it coming out of the back of the outlet or anything. You want it about right there, you know. So I think I've used up all my time here telling you about these outlets, but these are some tips and tricks that I've seen. Another tip and trick that I do not recommend is these holes. As you notice, this gauge wire would not fit in those holes. Some people will take a small drill bit and drill those out and stick them in there. These are pretty dangerous anyway. Even if the wire does stick into the hole here, and there's a little release button here, you can stick a very small flathead in there and it'll release it. But I think the screws released from this one. I think the screws released it anyway. But that's another thing people misconcept is they put the wire in, they don't tighten down the screws, so they're in there just loose as hell anyway. But these always come loose, burn off, because it's just not a tight enough connection. I'd recommend doing the hook and turn every time. Hook it and turn it. I am so tired of pulling out outlets and then the wire come flicking out the back, hit the damn side of the box, blow up in my face. I don't like it. So that's why, because you get a bunch of wires back behind that box and then you have to pull it like this to straighten that wire out. If it's in that hole right there, it's coming flicking out, it's hitting your screwdriver, you're getting fried or lit up or something like that, or getting a face full of copper, molten copper shit shooting off in your face. It's not fun. But it's Jeff the Maintenance Guy. Y'all be safe out there. If you do decide to do your own electrical work, just don't take my advice. All right, Jeff the Maintenance Guy. Be safe.